Good morning. He was once a candidate for mayor, and Arunan Arulampalam is now mayor-elect of our state's capital city following Tuesday's election. So what are some of the first steps he'll be taking in the days before his inauguration and into his first days in office? Hartford mayor-elect Arunan Arulampalam is here in Studio A to answer those questions. Welcome. Congratulations.
Thanks for having me.
I heard you say in your election night speech that things were going to be different starting that night.
Yeah.
So have they been? You're a few days into this mayor-elect thing. What has changed for you?
Well, different for me. There's a lot of excitement, I think, for this race, and also a lot of expectations. It's one thing to make promises on a campaign trail, but we really want to make sure that we show real progress, real work in the first few months, in the first year ahead. And so we've started this really robust transition effort. I've got some really great people at the table. We announced our co-chairs for the transition and for the various policy committees over the course of this week, and we're really excited to move ahead with the work.
I want to talk more about the transition and what's ahead, but when you were last on this show, right after you had won the primary, you were a good politician, and you said you got to go out in the general, you got to win the election. Yeah. A lot of people said it was a done deal. You win the Democratic primary in Hartford, you're going to be the next mayor. I tried to look for a theme in that general election campaign, and I came back to a word you said a lot on election night. You said the word hope more than 24 times in that speech. I stopped counting after 24. Why is the word hope so important to you as you move forward into the mayor's office?
Well, look, I think Hartford is a city that has so many challenges, but I really believe in the future of Hartford. My hope is that people see what is possible in this city, that people hope for what is possible in this city, that there's excitement about the future. Because look, we're gonna face a whole lot of challenges, but I hope we can hold that together with dreams and opportunities and potential that our city holds. And I want people to be excited. I want people to be excited for the future and to dig into the future of Hartford.
Sometimes we see those side-by-side pictures, someone gets elected president and then them 4 years later looking aged and worn from the job. Do you have to guard against when hope and belief is your rallying cry?
Yeah.
Do you have to guard against that the rigors of the job may beat that down? Is that something that you have to have some foresight on?
Yeah, well, luckily I went bald kind of early in life, and I think that my hope doesn't just stem from campaign rhetoric. I've lived in this city. I've worked in this city. I'm raising kids in this city. I think that as I talk to more and more people across the city of Hartford, that's something that resonates with so many people. And it's the job of our leaders to try to appeal to our better angels, to try to push us in that direction. And campaigns can get really ugly and personal, and I've seen that division early. But in the midst of it, there's so much hope in our community. And I think the more I can stay close to the ground and to the people of Hartford and listen to the people of Hartford, I'll continue to see those stories of hope, and I'll continue to it's what I got into this for. It's the potential of our city, and not the division and the things that drag us back. And so I will continue to try to find hope in my family, in my faith, and also in the people around me in the city of Hartford.
And you did talk about that. You felt that you brought the city together with your campaign. As you move forward, you talked about those conversations you had with voters, whether it was the primary or the general election. Was there a theme? Do you feel like you have one thing that's like really your marching orders on day one?
I think the nature of the job of mayor is you've got to have a whole bunch of things at the table, but we've got to deal really early on with continuing the economic development that we've seen in our city and building around that, but also stretching that out into our neighborhood so that everyone can feel our progress as a city, building on housing and the work I've done at the land bank and stretching that out to allow for more investment in quality, affordable housing in our communities and housing that leads to home ownership in a city with the lowest home ownership rate in the state, and then a real focus on our kids. And I've heard that so many times resonating at doors with people that when I talk about my kids and the lack of options after school and over the summer, so many parents are dealing with that in the city. And when we talk about crime in our city, when we talk about all of the youth disengagement within not just Hartford but all of the cities across Connecticut, I think making real investments into our children and making sure they have safe places to be, and productive activities, sports and recreation, music and arts. It's something that deeply resonates with residents.
Well, if you have goals with housing and economic development and having things for youth and raising them the right way and with better prospects, isn't crime and violence in the city of Hartford, sort of the shadow over top of all of that, both in the city, but also how the city is perceived from outside. 2022, we saw a number of homicides in the city that harken back to the 90s. This year, we're on pace to perhaps go ahead of that if the pace that we're currently on continues. Is that something that has to be dealt with both for residents and also for people outside looking in? Whether or not that crime may affect an outsider, there's a stigma.
Well, look, I think that that's certainly something that has to be dealt with, and certainly something that we will take seriously from day one. I also think you can't deal with crime in a vacuum. When you deal with housing, you're dealing with crime. When you deal with education, you're dealing with crime. When you deal with youth sports and youth engagement, you're dealing with crime. And so we've got to have a holistic solution that doesn't just start at the end point, which is when crimes are committed, but gets to people early and coordinates. We want to create an Office of Violence Prevention to coordinate our services between the nonprofits, the schools, our police force, and make sure we're identifying those who are likely to commit crimes. And there's a lot of data out there about where the red flags are and who these people are, and it's a small group of people, and we've got to get to them early, because if we start dealing with crime at the end point, at the point at which it's committed, it's already too late.
Let's talk about your transition. BelieveInHartford.com is the transition website, keeping that hope theme going. You want people to send in ideas. You want resumes. Maybe they want to be on a board and commission. What are you hoping people go to that website and do? Well,
a few things. We'll have all of our information there on the website. But yeah, you can send in resumes if you are looking for something in the administration. We have a number of boards and commissions at this city, and we'd love for people to be engaged in that. And there's a link to that, to the city website, to send in resumes for that. But we're going to have a whole host of conversations, and we're going to have our first kind of policy group meeting this coming Friday on November 17th, and we're going to have information on that to try to bring together some reports on what we can achieve within the first 6 months, first year in the administration, and then some longer term recommendations. And we're also going to make some announcements about some public sessions, listening sessions in the north end and the south end, to hear from residents directly about what they'd like to see in this administration. Make sure we're trying to bring as many voices to the table. I really think the best way we can move forward is by everyone being engaged and feeling like they're part of the future of the city. And we need people to feel like they're engaged in this process, not just on election day, not just in November, but all through the next 4 years.
Well, one thing that's good is over the next 4 years, I know I'm going to get to talk to you a lot as this process moves forward. Be ready, because those idea boxes are going to include like potholes people want filled and stuff. That's part of your job too now.
Well, I also want to be the pothole mayor. I see it on my street. I see how much of an impact it has just psychologically. My kids all the time, when they go to friends' houses, when they go to grandparents' houses in the suburbs, they say, "Why doesn't Hartford look like this?" And it's the small things. It's roads and sidewalks being clean and having trash taken care of. It's fixing those potholes and street lights. And as a mayor, I want to roll up my sleeves and be really involved in the day-to-day of that.
Well, they call it transition for a reason. I know you got your arms are trying to get wrapped around a pretty big job. We appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. We wish you good luck, and we look forward to hearing more about the first days of the Arulampalam administration.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Arun. Appreciate it. Mayor-elect Arunan Arulampalam here on CT23.